Welcome back. Today we're talking with Stephanie Barnes about radical knowledge management. Stephanie, great first segment. Lots of good information there and how RKM can help us with our creativity in our offices. One of the questions I did have for you is those people, let's say, that have gone through a workshop and they are trying to let their creativity loose, but then they go into a meeting room. How can they carry what they've learned in a creativity workshop, an RKM workshop, and carry that into the meeting room, when that, none of those people have gone through it. So how can we try and, what little things can we do to, start showing that, hey, we've learned things?
Yeah, well, and I always say start small. So, and especially if you're just doing an hour, your hour team meeting status update or whatever the purpose of the meeting is, you're not going to do painting. You're going to do some little quick activity that takes up 5 minutes. I will tell you it's worth the 5 minutes to improve the engagement and how people are feeling in the meeting. So I give people a little handout, a little booklet of some short activities that they can do that take 5 to 10 minutes. But one of the shortest one is a guided visualization that takes 3 minutes and just helps calm and center everybody. It works well in person. It works well in a remote or a virtual meeting situation. They started off just to say, okay, we're here for this, the purpose of this meeting. I'd like to just bring everybody into the room and invite you to do this guided visualization for a few minutes, just because we're all so busy, and that'll help calm and center us before we get into the meat of the meeting. And so just do that. It's as easy as that. Start small. And the hardest part of it, honestly, is the stories that we tell ourselves. That, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. My boss is in the meeting. Well, your boss is human too. The CEO is human too, and is probably jumping from meeting to meeting to meeting just like everybody else, possibly more so. And so might actually appreciate 3 minutes of visualizing a flower, and things happening to the flower. Everybody, we're human. We forget that sometimes. I hear a lot lately about remembering our humanity. And so takes 3 minutes to remember our humanity, to give us all a bit of space to breathe. So start small. Don't worry about the story. I tell people to tell them it's an experiment, that you went to this crazy class and this crazy person suggested you do this, and you just wanted to try it out and see what happens. If people hate it, then you don't have to do it again. I have never, in all the times I've been doing it now regularly as a routine part of my meetings for 6 years. I've never had anybody get upset about it.
That's kind of a team building exercise as well.
It is. There is absolutely. There's a team building aspect to it, that creating community, that camaraderie, that we're in this together, and I encourage, reflecting on it. If anybody wants, I never make anybody reflect if they don't want to share, but oftentimes people will comment, oh, that was so nice. I've been running around like crazy all day, and that was so nice just to catch my breath for 3 minutes and not feel guilty because it's part of the team meeting. So yeah, and I had one woman one time in a session. She had lost her mom. This was during the pandemic, early months of the pandemic. She'd lost her mom in the early months of the pandemic, and she hadn't been able to sort of let go of this idea that she'd lost her mom and her mom wasn't there anymore. Completely understandable. And I didn't know any of this until afterwards, but we did this guided visualization, and she said, that's the first time I've caught a bit of respite, or a bit of a break from these obsessive thoughts. And I'm like, wow, it's just a silly little, and I say silly, but it's these little things, these little interventions can have this huge impact, because it gave her, after 4 months, gave her a couple of minutes of just breathing and being able to just be, rather than feeling upset about her mom being gone. So, you don't know what people are going through. So doing these little things can have a big impact on people. So
You said the word interventions there, and you talk about something else in your articles about radical knowledge management, and that was art-based interventions. So is that what you're talking about? Like
yes,
using
yeah.
these creativities to do that?
Yeah, arts-based interventions that's what I've found. They're generally called in the literature. They can be any kind of thing, arts-based, obviously, but they're just an arts-based activity. So it can be drawing, could be photography, could be improv, could be some other theater or musical experience. Can be small, little. A lot of the stuff I do is little 5-10 minute things. I do painting interventions that are bigger that we've mentioned already that take do over a series of days. There are bigger theater. I've read case studies about theater, bringing theater people and directors and in for team building and strategy sessions and for a week long sort of team building and workshop. I wouldn't ever lead something like that. I don't have a theater background. I'm not comfortable with that. The painting I'm good with. But if it's that kind of intervention, then I would be going out and asking for somebody with a theater background to come in and do that kind of intervention. But yeah, small or big, all kinds of different, whatever arts kind of activity you can imagine, that's what that refers to.
So how, with organizations out there struggling with decision making and struggling with trying to make their operations resilient, or trying to make their leadership, some sort of resilient, on a journey of resilience, how and where should some of these organizations start? I can't imagine the CEO showing up with a bunch of art supplies saying, "This is what we're doing." But maybe that is. I don't know. So what are some
Maybe
of
he
the
or she
tips?
should.
Yeah, maybe. You'd really throw your C-suite for a loop if the CEO showed up and did that, going, what? But then again, maybe they'd enjoy it too. So how can you get started? Because let's face it, sometimes the CEO, she's also in charge of hiring as well, and for small companies, but the problems are still the same, decision making and all that kind of stuff. So how can they go about maybe making some of these small changes and implementing some of the things that you've talked about? How can they get started? Where can they get started?
There's actually a lot of stuff on the internet when you start looking for it. And as I have discovered, once I had the right terminology, which is why I use arts-based interventions. But once you start to Google, there's lots of stuff out there, and there's lots of stuff that you can sort of leverage and repurpose. Stuff that's done with kids, stuff that's art therapy. Although I'm very careful to say I'm not a trained art therapist. The work isn't that I do is not art therapy, but some of the activities that you might find in the art therapy books are useful activities. So I use those to give me inspiration to use in the workshops. But generally, and I've found the more I've gotten into this, there are lots of people working in this area. They may not call it radical knowledge management. Radical knowledge management is my thing. That's the name that I put on it. But there are lots of people that are working in the space in the intersection of arts and business. So there's, like you say, just do a bit of Googling around that, and you'll find artists and different backgrounds. So there's musicians, and there are theater people and dancers that are doing work in this space. And that's part of what makes it so exciting, the variety of it all. But start small. I'm talking about all these dancers and theater and music and things which gets intimidating, which I totally understand. But start small. Start with some of these little icebreaker games. I do scribble drawings a lot. It's my sort of go-to. They take 5 minutes. You need a pen and a paper, and it's literally scribbling. So close your eyes, scribble on the piece of paper, open your eyes, add some stuff to it for a couple of minutes. You're done. and it's amazing the shift that happens. So I think a lot of times we make it harder. We think that it's harder than it needs to be. This really isn't. It's just about getting people out of their boxes, as we were talking about before. It's about opening up some space for reflection and for looking at problems differently. Um, some organizations I'm talking to and others that I'm observing are setting up studio spaces in their offices now that we're doing hybrid work and remote work, creating these studio spaces in their offices in this unused office space so that when people are in the office, they have this space to go to collaborate and work together, do these team building events and activities and solve problems that are harder to solve online or that they just can't. They need to be together to hash things out and work through things. And there's a limit to how much time you can spend on a Zoom call. So to have 8 hours in a room or 10 hours in a room together, collaborating and working on problem solving using these kinds of materials is important and critical and something that organizations are doing. And then with the studio spaces, it makes it worthwhile. Nobody wants to go back into the office just to sit on a Zoom call.
You don't even want to do that, and you don't want to do that when you're at home.
Exactly. So if people are going to have to come back into the office, make it worth their while. Give them the space to collaborate and prototype and problem solve in the studio. So some of the case studies and things I reference in the articles talk about problems that had existed for 10 years that they came, the two teams in question, the one case I'm thinking about, came into the studio for a week, solved this problem that they'd been struggling with for 10 years. Somebody needs to tell me the ROI. I have an undergrad in accounting. I don't know how to figure out the ROI on that, but there's a pretty decent ROI on that. And that's just the thing. We look at the arts-based stuff and go, but it's used to solve problems that we can't solve any other way. Because it gets us thinking differently. It gets us out of that analysis mode and thinking it's got to be A, then B, then C. Oh, no, it's not. Because maybe it's A, then Z, then M, and 2,
Yeah.
and it's a totally different path. So the arts-based stuff gets us out of that box thinking and helps us do something else.
Well, I guess it would help change that. We do it that way because we've always done it that way. So you're always going to get the same results, and now you're complaining about the results, but you're still doing everything the same way.
Yep. Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yeah.
About sums it up.
You mentioned something there, team events. Before the pandemic, sometimes there were team events where people went to a restaurant or they went to an adult arcade, where adults go to. Is it now that we post-pandemic, a lot of those things aren't occurring anymore because we're working at home. So is this, I don't want to say a substitute, but is this another way where that can fill that gap now?
Absolutely. It's another gap. It's another way to fill that void and create the bond between or among the team members, because everybody's working remote. People mostly, with some exceptions and some caveats, certainly like working remotely, like not having to sit in traffic for hours every day, like having that time back with their family and their friends, understandably. But it is important for knowledge transfer and a whole bunch of other things that we have these relationships and these trust bonds with our colleagues. And so doing some of this stuff remotely or virtually, the painting or whatever it is another way to build some of that trust in a remote or hybrid environment. So for sure.
Building that trust, does that also increase our ability to communicate new ideas?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If I trust you, I'm much more willing to say, you know what, I just had a crazy idea. What do you think of this? Whereas if I don't know if I trust you or not, I'm going to probably keep what I think might be a crazy idea to myself because I'm afraid of being judged.
Mm.
So I know absolutely building that trust is key. And it's important for our resilience, our ability to bounce back from things and to pick ourselves up when the going gets rough. You know, we're social beings. We were meant to be in groups and be together in those trusted environments. And so, yeah, now we're all in our homes, and that's, you know, mostly a good thing. But we need to still have those bonds. So doing these kinds of things is a way of building that up and creating that.
Well, I know from working from home a lot more. I've gotten to know my neighbors a lot more. Where I where I've lost in the office, so to speak, I've gained with my neighbors.
Yeah,
We see each other,
yeah,
it's the same thing. I trust them a lot more, and we watch each other now. So, it does make a change. Now,
yeah.
we have about 6 minutes left, but I
Okay.
want to get your thoughts on something else you and I touched on, and that's artificial intelligence. What are your thoughts on that?
Uh, I don't think 6 minutes is enough. Um, it's funny because my first Radical KM article was published in a journal, in an AI journal, and one of the reviewers came back and was like, "You don't even mention artificial intelligence in your article, and you're publishing in an AI journal. What are you thinking? You know, you got to mention AI." And so I added in a couple of sentences in the article and said, this is a contrarian view on AI because knowledge is human. And so AI is nice, it's a nice tool and it's a useful tool for some things. But knowledge is human. We are humans regardless of where we are in the hierarchy. We're all humans and we need to remember that and treat ourselves and each other like humans. Humans aren't meant to work 24/7, you know, give us some change our oil, once every
Mm,
60,000 kilometers or whatever it is. It's been too long since I owned a car, but um, you know, it's no, and we need to sleep, we need to eat, we need to socialize, um, and AI. So yeah, I'm kind of. It's a tool, and it's a nice tool, and it's a useful tool, but it's not the be all and end all. And I'm concerned about us forgetting and losing our humanity with this embrace, with this hype over AI and especially the large language model stuff. And I'm concerned. I'm
mhm.
concerned.
I'm going to
People's
tie back the AI to what we've been talking about prior, and that is, do you think that AI can be seen as a replacement by some for creativity? I don't need to go through all this creativity mumbo jumbo or whatever they say because I have AI.
Yeah. There are people who think like that. Um, AI really is just copying. It's just copying what it's been fed with. It's not creating anything new. And I think about my art practice. And I did a series of paintings a few years ago that incorporated zippers in the painting. So I cut the canvas, I sewed a zipper in, I did a bunch of other stuff. And a curator here, I had showed it in an exhibition, and a curator said to me, "Where did you get that idea? Where did you see that?" I'm like, "I didn't see it anywhere. I just made it up." Um, I had this idea of what I wanted to do with the painting and something I was trying to show with the painting about opening up. I thought, what opens up? Zippers. So I put the zippers in the paintings. And AI is never going to come up with that
Mm,
because it hadn't been done before. So there is a time and a place for AI generated art, but it's not art. It's something else. I don't know what name to call it, but it's not art. It's yeah, it's not art.
and it could just be delivering the same solutions that we're trying to break away from anyway.
Exactly. Exactly. Because all it knows is what's gone before.
Mhm.
So whereas humans will take things and put things together, and I've heard people say, oh well, humans are only learning on, going on what they've learned too. And yeah, but humans will put them together differently, like me and the zippers and the painting, or the solution that I was talking about with this company, with this organization, and the problem they had tried to solve for 10 years came together in the studio for a week and solved it.
Mhm.
An AI wouldn't do that. An AI would still be churning around on the 10 years, probably be up to 20 years by now. And so, but humans in a week solved it.
We've got 2 minutes left. Do you want to take 1 minute and give a final thought or any final comments on radical knowledge management you'd like to convey?
I know it sounds crazy, but give it a try. It's experiential. Art has such a big impact on our brain, and thus on our organizations, on ourselves, on our resilience, on everything we do. And it's more important than we've been led to believe. It really is.
Well, yeah, we've all gone to museums. We've all seen paintings or sculptures or something. Even walking down the street, you can see that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
we've all seen something creative in our life, and many of us listen to music as well. And have read a book, or something like that. So creativity is all around us, whether we understand that or not. And we have to, like you described, we kind of have to take our own blinders off and let
Yeah.
ourselves be creative, because that's exactly what's being asked of us to do in our daily jobs.
Yep.
Is be creative.
Be creative, be innovative.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
it's interesting that, we're born creative. We become not so receptive to creativity, but then being asked to be creative. It seems like a strange cycle that we create for ourselves.
Yes. Yes, it is. So
Stephanie, thank you very much for joining us today. This was really interesting, and I like new ways of thinking, and I like new ways of presenting things, and how to deal with resilience issues, and decision-making processes, and team building, and all those things that we touched on today. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
oh, thank you for having me, Alex. I was so happy to talk with you and share all of this with you. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. And everyone watching and listening, stay prepared, everybody. If you like that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.